Hello, I'm Deacon Harold, and this is The Prodigal Life. And I'm joined, as usual, by Nick and Ellen. And we're here to help you make a deeper connection between your faith and your everyday life.
And we're gonna be diving into some dangerous waters today.
Yes, we are.
Some touchy waters.
Touchy.
Ellen, introduce it.
We are going to do racism and the Catholic response to it. And we're going to talk about the difference between racism and prejudice and how, as Catholics and Christians, we're called to respond to it. And we're going to give some backstories and talk about maybe some of our personal experiences with either prejudice or racism or both. And it, like I said, it's going to be a very interesting show. But Deacon has a book actually coming out next year with that exact title, Racism and the Catholic Response to It. Correct?
Building a Civilization of Love, a Catholic response
beautiful.
to racism.
Okay. So we're going to touch all of that. And then Deacon's going to right now give us some biblical, background to racism.
So just to show the example of racism, Numbers chapter 12. So Numbers chapter 12, Miriam and Aaron are upset with Moses because as Moses married a Cushite woman. And Cush is modern day Ethiopia.
You got to watch out for those Cushite women.
Yeah, so they were upset for two reasons. One, because if they're Israelites and they're God's chosen people, you're supposed to marry an Israelite. If you're an Israelite, you marry someone within the God's chosen people race. Right. Because he married outside of his race, they were upset about that. And the fact she's also black. So, hello. So they began to question his judgment about his ability to lead the people, because if he's making a decision like this, then how is he going to make decisions about leading the entire people of Israel? And they were upset with him about that. So Moses goes and visits the Lord. And after he comes out, it says this, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, Miriam and Aaron. And behold, Miriam became leprous, as white as snow. So the type of leprosy that she had wasn't Hansen's disease, where your limbs fall off. It was a form of eczema, I guess you would say, a really bad case of eczema. And if you have eczema, sometimes your skin turns white. And Aaron turned to Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said to Moses, "O Lord, O my Lord, do not punish us because we have done foolishly and sinned."
Oh.
See, so the recognition that their response to Moses was sinful, right? So when we talk about racism, we have to make a distinction between racism and prejudice, right? So let's talk about prejudice, right? So prejudice is making a preconceived notion about someone that's not based on any objective or subjective knowledge or experience, okay? So that's what prejudice is. Racism is prejudice with the added piece. The reason why I'm saying this is because I believe my race is superior to your race. Wow. Okay, so let me give you a concrete example. After a parish mission talk one time, a guy came up to me, found out I went to Notre Dame, and he goes, "Oh, you went to Notre Dame. What position did you play?" Okay, so now I could perceive the calculus in his mind. Big black guy plus Notre Dame equals football. Okay, right. And so some people say that was racist. That was racist. No, it wasn't racist. It was prejudice. He made a preconceived notion about me without knowing me personally. And not knowing any objective facts like my biography, which is on my website, which people can see. I went to Notre Dame, right? So without any of that knowledge, he just looked at me and made a judgment. That's not racist. In order for that statement to be racist, he would have to have meant when he said it, the reason I said what I just said is because I believe that no person of color can get into a school of that caliber academically. The only way they can get in is because of sports and athletics.
It'd have to imply that they are lesser. Essentially.
See, exactly. Yeah. But that's not what he meant, because when he found out I had an academic scholarship, he went, he was kind of embarrassed. So clearly it wasn't. But we live in a culture today where where those terms are being conflated,
Yes.
where people will say something and say, that's racist, or all white people are racist, or look,
it's
slow
not,
down,
it's
take a
not to
breath.
say that like it's okay to be prejudiced but not
Right,
racist, because
right.
he shouldn't have made that assumption.
Right, exactly.
That's
Right.
also
Exactly.
unfair. But at the same time, there is a difference, and
Well,
it's
one
important.
is much more egregious than the other, but they're both egregious.
Well, we all have prejudices.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, even when it comes to things like when I first started traveling, I started going to the South. I just assumed everybody likes shrimp and grits.
Mhm.
And then I found out there are people in the South that don't like shrimp and grits.
Mhm.
I'm like, I was prejudiced. I thought everybody, see, that's a prejudiced way of thinking.
Mhm.
Without going to the South, I just assumed, right? So we all have those kinds of prejudices.
Mhm.
But it becomes racist when it comes things like, the Ku Klux Klan or white supremacism or other things where it's based. You're making these judgments based on the fact that I am superior to you, and my race is superior to yours.
Mhm.
That's where it becomes an issue.
A really simple example of a prejudice, because like you're saying, we all have them.
Mhm.
And so I'll just be really transparent about one that I have. I am like a major germ freak. Like I do not like it when I observe that someone used the restroom without washing their hands, and so because of the way that we've been conditioned and whatever, we draw immediate conclusions about someone when we see them. So when we see someone that looks like they're well put together, that looks like they're cleaned up well, whatever, they're wearing clothing that isn't wrinkled, whatever, like we assume something differently about that person than about someone who doesn't look as well put together, someone that looks more disheveled. And in my mind, because of how the way in which my germ phobia essentially kind of takes pride of place in my psyche, where my head goes is that cleaner, tidier person, they probably are someone that washes their hands. I can shake my hand with that person and feel good about it. This person that's more disheveled, they probably don't wash their hands in the bathroom. I should probably feel a little bit more self-conscious and make sure I can go wash my hands before after I shake their hand. But what is actually true is that is an entirely unreliable way to measure that, because you would be shocked at the types of people that I have been surprised by who didn't wash their hands in the bathroom, or you know what I mean? And I was like, I thought you were clean,
Yeah.
Oh
so, but we have these things, and I'll still fall back on that preconceived notion, that prejudice when I see someone, even though I know that it's unreliable.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
hilarious.
So where does that come from? Prejudice and racism, because it's learned.
It's learned.
Because think about it,
Learned and taught.
kids like your kids, right? If those kids are playing on a playground, they're playing with other kids, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. They don't care. They're just kids playing. But what happens over time? They begin to be exposed to images, to jokes, to television, to social media, to their friends, and all these different things, and they begin to see people of different colors, people of different races, nationalities in a particular prejudiced way. And it becomes like your kids, they came up and they go, I remember you.
Yeah.
From the last time that we were here. They weren't scared of me. I have some people that are afraid of me. They don't know me. They just like, big black guy. Where does that come from? It doesn't come from when you're a little kid. You're not born racist, as some organizations and groups are purporting right now that you're born racist. You're not born
Nobody
racist.
is born racist.
Those kinds of things are learned.
And we just got canceled.
And my thing is, it's got deplatformed.
Yeah.
If you can learn it, you can unlearn it.
That's right.
You can unlearn it. That's the key. But you have to recognize first that you do have these prejudices, which may turn even racism, depending on your background, how you were raised. You see people a certain way, but then when you get to know someone, it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't fit the narrative that I've always believed, and that's why we have to go back to the gospel. That's why I have to go back to the scriptures, being made in the image and likeness of God and seeing that person in front of me the way God sees them.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the
beautiful.
key. That's the key.
That's very important.
So how do we do this in parishes?
Let me ask you this. I was curious about this. We had a guest on recently who's another Black Catholic evangelist and apologist, David L. Gray. Awesome guy.
Yeah,
great episodes with him. But you brought something up while we were talking to him, and I want to ask you about it here in the context of this topic.
AWAKEN.
The topic of Black parishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here in the Diocese of Toledo, we have a parish that is kind of that. And that has always kind of been weird to me.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
No, it comes out of a couple of things, okay? There's two things when we have what we call Black parishes. First of all, it comes out of the fact that remember now, back in the day, there was Italian parish, Irish parish, German parish,
Got it.
Polish parish.
Yeah.
So there were ethnical parishes based
There still
on
are.
from what country you came from. And you want to worship people from your country. That's one piece with the Black church.
Mhm.
The other piece is Jim Crow and slavery.
Mhm.
Back then, in fact, my little parish, Immaculate Heart in Portland, it was traditionally a German and Irish parish. So even to this day, but a beautiful church, by the way, actually looks like a church. Right? When you walk in, there's a beautiful statue of Blessed Virgin Mary, Immaculate Heart of Mary, because that's the name of the church. But then you have St. Patrick and St. Bonaventure on either side of the Blessed Mother, because that shows the German and Irish patrimony of the parish. So Portland is not a very, I think it's 2% Black, like the state of Oregon. But how the majority of the Black folks got there was during World War II. There's a shipyard. They used to build ships and things during World War II. So Immaculate Heart is the closest parish to the shipyards. And so people the people from the Black folks that came from Texas and Louisiana and Alabama would come to Immaculate Heart. Well, they had to sit in the back or the choir loft. So the question is, why was the Catholic Church following Jim Crow and not following the gospel of Jesus Christ?
So
what they did was they went to, so if they don't want us here, we'll go to our own church.
Yeah.
And it was those
hard.
two things.
That's so hard.
It is.
And to me, like, someone could easily hear what I said, where I said, I don't like that, and think, you don't think Black people deserve a parish? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, I don't think we should have Black or white or, Hispanic, whatever parishes. Now, I am Hispanic. I'm Cuban American. I grew up speaking Spanish and English. I am very familiar with and comfortable with, and I think is right, the idea that there are different cultures that can be represented in the way that liturgy is conducted. So for example, if I go to South Florida and I attend Mass there, and it's one of the Spanish-speaking Masses, number one, they're speaking Spanish. There's a huge culture, a huge population and demographic there that needs Spanish to be the language in which the Mass is delivered instead of just English. But number two, the whole approach is different. It's reflective of that Hispanic culture. The music, people are kind of almost dancing as we're worshiping and celebrating, and it's really beautiful in a sense. So on the one hand, I understand and I see the need for,
it's a cultural thing.
I don't want to use the word representation because it's icky to me, but like an acknowledgement of reality, the reality that the population there is so densely it's so densely Cuban American and Hispanic. Because if I were to use the word representation, it would become to me, even if there was like a family there, that we have to have a whole Mass of, a Cuban American styled liturgy. That to me would be what representation would be trying to achieve, and I don't think that would be right. Being rooted in reality, that's what virtue is. Rooted in reality, that population, that demographic is Cuban American. So I think that that's one thing, to offer something that community needs culturally. But a very different thing is to say, we're going to have a Black parish because
you're not welcome.
It's almost it almost perpetuates this segregation. It almost perpetuates, like,
this church is for Black people.
This is there's us and there's them. That to me, I'm very uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I see. I definitely see what you're saying. And so I actually talk about that in the book. So a couple of things here. How can we address this issue effectively in our parishes? One thing I noticed at Immaculate Heart was when I first got there, we're a small parish, like 210 families. We're in the hood, like literally we have drug dealing, prostitution right outside the doors of the church. And so, but we have even though we're small, about half the parish is Vietnamese. The other half are Filipinos. And then we have people from about 8 different countries in Africa. Very richly diverse parish. But I noticed, like, the Vietnamese are doing their own thing. The Filipinos doing their own thing. The Africans doing their own thing. I'm like, wait a minute. We got such diversity. Why aren't we doing more stuff together?
Right.
So one of the things that we did was we started doing potlucks. Because think about it.
That's smart.
When Jesus wanted to have communion, look at how many many times he's eaten?
Lots of
So
times.
guys, coming to your house tonight, bro. He's eating with tax collectors, sinners, Pharisees.
It's a miracle he had a six-pack on the cross.
Right. Yeah, but he's eating all the time because it's when you're eating an enjoyable experience, you create community, you create communion.
Yes.
So I said, let's have potluck. And so people brought all their food from all the different countries, and people were trying different things. And we made sure people weren't sitting in cliques, that people were mixing. And then we had people got up, selective group, and just told their story.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Here's what it's like being
Testimony.
Vietnamese coming from my country and trying to live my faith here. Here's the struggle we're having with keeping our kids speaking our language. We want our kids to hold on to their culture, but they want to be Americanized. The Africans go, we're having that same problem with our kids. And all of a sudden there's synergy. There's a connectedness there and there's community.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And if you have and one guy described this parish to me, country club white. He goes, how do we do it in our parish? There's a black parish down the street. There's a Hispanic parish. Invite them in, have a potluck. Let them tell their stories. Let them share their experience. It's entering into someone's story because we get so bogged in with our own way of thinking and we stay in our lane that we don't think about other things that's happening outside of our sphere of influence. But what about bringing people into our story and sharing their experience with us?
Yeah, and seeing each other as people first and foremost, and seeing ourselves as people first and foremost. So, you mentioned also in that same interview with David L. Gray that you don't consider yourself a Black Catholic. You consider yourself a Catholic that's Black.
Yeah.
I went through a really interesting transition because I was brought up so proud of my Cuban American heritage, and I still love it. I still think it's beautiful. I still think it's fun. It would be dreadfully boring to me to be anything other than the Cuban American that I am. I love it, but I really loved it. I was almost indoctrinated to worship this idea that I'm Cuban, and it's not just me uniquely in my family of origin. It's that is something that is kind of cultivated when you're a part of a minority. It's that this is what you are. This is your identity, to the extent that I'm in clubs in the high school that was called Life Latinos in Full Effect. Your whole your existence is surrounding this. And so this thing that happened to me when I had my reversion and I came to God and I made my first confession and I'm turning my life over to Him, and it's I want everything to be about you, God. So I am first and foremost your son. I am that.
Yes.
And
yes.
It's hard because occasionally my wife she'll mention to me Nick, you don't listen to salsa music as much and stuff. And I'm I still love it. I just, I'm not worshiping at the altar of my Latino-ness anymore. I don't listen to a lot of music anymore because I'm too busy, but that's annoying to me, but
it's just balance. It's finding a healthy balance.
Absolutely. So to me, seeing yourself as a person, a son or a daughter of God, can allow you to start to see other people that way. And when my son Augustine ran up to you today and he was I remember you, he didn't run up to you joyfully saying that because I've taught him to see Black people as our equals, as white Cuban Americans. He ran up to you like that because he saw the person of you.
See? That's why Jesus says, unless you act like a childlike innocence, not childish, but that beautiful childlike, and to see the world and see people through the eyes of a child. That's the kind of stuff that Jesus is talking about.
Yeah.
And we have to get back to that.
Yes.
We have to get back. And so just to clarify what I meant by that statement, I'm Catholic first.
Right.
Okay. So, and I mentioned on the show, when I die and stand before Jesus, not going to ask me how Black I am, right? because the gospel applies to everyone. Sometimes you don't understand Hispanic culture. I understand the gospel. So where does it say this applies to everyone except for the Hispanics because they have their own culture? It doesn't say that.
Right.
In fact, there's no physical description of Jesus in the scriptures at all.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter about his race. What matters is it's God teaching us. And that's what we focus on. That doesn't mean I don't deny my Caribbean heritage.
Right.
Or I don't speak my dialect anymore.
Right.
Or I don't enjoy the music or the food. It doesn't mean any of that.
But all of these things are being exploited by the enemy, by society to distract us from that preeminent focus that we are sons and daughters of God. So whether it is your race, whether it is your profession, whether it's the gender that you're attracted to, your sexual preferences, or your own sexual identity, whatever minority that you're clinging to, or the social group that you're identifying with, whatever these things are, all of it is second to your sonship or daughtership under God.
And that's when the eras of critical race theory, they have something called intersectionality, where what defines you is a social construct.
Yeah.
So I am an Asian, Democrat, lesbian, stuff, and that's what my identity is.
Oh no.
See, that's completely contrary to the gospel.
Yeah.
You know, and who we are as sons and daughters of God first.
Mm-hmm.
Not denying our cultural heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And what the other errors is something like, like, oh, all white people, oh, you're all racist. Because you're the power, and it comes about power and authority and you're up here and then you have everybody else. They just automatically assume that simply because you're white. Have you experienced anything like that? Or
it's weird. In my hometown, well, the family's hometown in Massachusetts, I'm Irish Catholic. And that was defined, you know what I mean? And I was raised Irish Catholic, but I moved to a town where there was the French Catholic Church too. And there had been infighting between the French Catholics and the Irish Catholics. Like they didn't even date or marry each other.
Wow.
And that went all the way up into the 80s. Okay. That's like a big deal. And so when because I'm a rebel, not only did I date a Frenchman in the early 80s, I married a Frenchman too. And the Frenchman got married in the Irish church. So that was just, you know what I mean, the way it rolled. And it was a big thing. Not so much for when I was a teenager, but like the grandparents, the parents, the grandparents, the great grandparents that were still alive. Holy mackerel. You would have thought that we were like, murdering children in the back room or something. I mean, like it was a big deal. And it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And then to speak to the clearest memory I have of, I don't know if it would be racism or prejudice. I think it's probably both. My very first boyfriend that, very young, but he was Black. And my oldest friend ever in my entire thing, she was Black. I grew up with her. We met when I was like 6 or 8 months old. Our families were best friends. She spent summers with me. I spent summers with her. I didn't know she was Black, and I don't know that she knew I was white. I mean, it wasn't a big conversation. So one summer when I was 13 or 14, I went to visit her, and her cousin was visiting from Baltimore. And the young crush, you know what I mean? And I had a crush on him. His name was Michael. And he had, you know what I mean? And so it was very innocent. You know what I mean? It was very wonderful and everything. And one day we went into town, and this was in Connecticut. And we were at the store together. And of course we were holding hands and being, you know what I mean? Like a 14-year-old kid. I think he was a couple of years older than me. So he was probably 15 or 16. And we were doing that. And there was this woman in there. We were looking at bathing suits, and I was telling her how much, and there was I love black and white bathing suits. That is a true story. When I was a kid, I can show you all pictures when I was a kid. I always had a black and white bathing suit because I liked black and white bathing suits, not because of any other reason. And so I made that comment in this store, standing there with my boyfriend, you know what I mean, who was Black, even though he had beautiful green eyes.
And if you're just listening to the show, Ellen is white.
I am white. I'm definitely white. And I'm Irish. I'm very Irish. And I made that comment that I just love black and white together. That's exactly what I said. I could hear it as clear as a bell. And Michael was like, wow, yeah, this is really great and whatever. And I think he gave me a kiss, whatever. And this woman on the other side of the rack, I thought she was going to die. She was horrified. And the look that she gave me, I will never forget it to this day. I don't know that Michael saw it. I saw it. And she just was like, she let out this exhaustive, disgusted, like grunt.
That's so gross.
Groan or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then she just turned on her heel and just like fled the store. And I was like, what was that? Because like I was oblivious. Like I didn't even really know what was going on. And my friend's mother, who Miss Tina. I love Miss Tina. They're all gone now, except for Michael's still alive, but the rest of the family's gone. And she was just like, I think we need to go now. You know what I mean? And we just, we left the store. And she didn't really address it. You know what I mean? It wasn't a conversation. We were kids. So we just went on to the next activity, which I think was swimming or roller skating or, you know what I mean? Whatever we were going to do. But But I can remember the feeling standing there in that store, looking, and this older woman, I can see her. And it was just this, it was like a hatred.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and she didn't speak words. It was just the grunt and the groan and the disgust.
Mm.
And I was just like, that's just not normal. And, cause I never, I didn't understand it. Like I didn't, I was never, they were part of our lives. You know what I mean? And we had Hispanic friends, we had Jewish, some of my parents' best friends were Jewish. You know what I mean? We're still friends to this day. And so I never, you know what I mean? Like my parents were in the army in the 60s.
It just wasn't a thing.
We all lived together. Everybody was there. And then when we traveled a lot, worked for Pratt & Whitney, there was just a wide variety. And we always, I don't remember it ever, racism ever being like part of it. And I just always saw people for who they were. Like you said, you're supposed to see them. And I don't know that I was making a cognitive decision that I was looking at Christ or trying to find Christ within them. But I knew based on my upbringing that I was supposed to love them. You know what I mean? And that they were no different than me, other than they had a different story.
Yeah, like coming here, right?
Mhm.
I hardly saw any brothers up in here
Oh.
in Bowling Green. But when I go over to the gym to work out, the people are so nice. I mean, but I don't always get that experience. Sometimes people come up there, they're nervous. So you can see it in their face and their body language, but in the gym, they're like, oh, you're new here. I mean, it was so refreshing. That no one's looking at, oh, here's the black dude in the gym. I mean, it was just like, oh, Harold, like this guy goes, hey, Harold, when I walked into I'm like, dude, what? I mean, I've only been here a couple of days. You know who I am already. It was just so awesome.
Yeah.
And that's, and the other thing is, I don't use the word minority. I hate that word, actually. Because think about it. Some studies show the next 10 or 15 years, Hispanics are going to be the majority of Catholics in the Church in America. So that means the white people are going to be minorities. Is that what you want to be called?
Funny story.
Right? Minority.
Funny story. Hawaii. I lived in Hawaii for 6 years. And I used to always meet people, because we were there stationed in the military. And I always, and I hate to say this because this is probably a prejudice, but the people that always tell me how much they hated it and they couldn't stand being there because we were called Howleys, the white people. We made up 7% of the population in Hawaii. We were a minority. And we were made blatantly aware that we were a minority. And the true Hawaiians really do not like us because we came to do good and did very, very well. That's what they say, this Hawaiian sovereignty movement, which I was actually involved in for a little while because, if you find out the history. So there's a big prejudice racism thing going on there, but no, you don't want to be called a minority.
Yeah, neither do we.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
With the statistics that you're talking about and that shift that's going to happen, I'm going to be pretty chill either way because I'm both white and Hispanic. So,
So the point is, I just say people of color.
Yeah.
Because people say, you're African American. That's another thing I can't, because I'm not African American. I'm Caribbean American. So when you comment, you're denying my heritage. So just say, don't be afraid for white people to say black. Hey, here's a black guy. I mean, when it's in law enforcement, there is a black guy, 5'6". That's not racist. Like you're describing the thing,
Right.
You're describing the guy. So it's
Yeah.
let's just focus on the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Seeing people the way God sees them, and really entering into someone's story and getting to know them,
right,
as a person. That's I think,
guys,
those are the keys.
We did it. We saved the world.
Yeah.
You don't even have to publish your book now. Just send people this episode.
People just watch the episode. We're good.
But I think the bottom line is, I know for me, when I was young and I had that experience, I knew it was wrong. Not because I understood it, because I didn't understand it. I really didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel right. And I knew it wasn't about love. And it's pretty much, if you have a feeling or a thought or something in a situation, because we all have prejudices based on how we were raised. And some of them might be very subtle. Some of them might be glaring. But if it doesn't feel right, and I'm not trying to make that you do everything on feelings, but if you have that hesitation or whatever, when you're having a thought about something or someone or a different person or whatever, you got to just kind of back up away from it for a minute and just kind of go, okay, am I having that because of this or this or this? And then look at it and say, yeah, I don't want to think that way. And exactly,
Yeah,
it's
beautiful.
good. Alrighty. So like Nick said, we nailed it. We solved the world's problems. We're all better now. Anyway, but thank you for joining us on this episode. And please go to the App Store and go to the awakenapp.io. You can go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store and download it, where you can get other podcasts, videos, music, messaging app, and a prayer library that has prayers in 3 different languages. Kind of exciting. And then Deacon's going to share with you how you can support us if you like what you're seeing.
Just go to theprodigallife.com, and there you will see different levels where you can give and support the work that we're doing here at the Prodigal Life. And we've tied those different giving levels to the hierarchy of angels. So you truly can become an angel investor in the Prodigal Life podcast.
Amen. And if you're a business or a foundation or a corporation or anything, and you like what you're seeing and you want to become a sponsor of the show, please come to our website and we can get you more information, because we would love to have you and we would love to promote your business in our business. Thank you. God bless you all.